SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. It is Friday. We have made it to the end of the week. It is January 9th. The first full week of January is officially behind us here in 2026. And how are you doing this morning, Lance?
Oh, a little disappointed, but
tough not to be.
Such is life. Ole Miss did very well. It was exactly as the line said, what we said yesterday, 3.5-point game, favored
right.
Miami. It was basically that much of the game. Ole Miss took a lead briefly. Miami decided to answer right back with a pro-caliber quarterback and a team that looked very physical in the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. Thought it was a great fought game by Ole Miss. Just could not convert on third down and couldn't get off the field on third down, and that seemed to be the difference in the time of possession. Statistically pretty even, except Miami, again, controlled the line of scrimmage a little better running the football.
Particularly in the first half.
First
right?
half, yeah. But, 191 rushing for Miami, 121 rushing for Ole Miss. That was something that I think was talked about a bit, was how was that front 5 to 7 guys in Miami really going to hold up or handle the Ole Miss rushing attack? Did a great job. Kind of spread it out on Ole Miss, and only the one touchdown for Lacey. But, it was a great game. It was.
Oh, absolutely.
I thought Ole Miss played poorly, but especially that first half.
Right.
But as the second half came on, you saw a slow starting team kind of get going, as we've seen them do. And, it's just the best team, I think, won last night. I hate to say that, but the one that played the best won.
Yeah.
I don't mean overall. It's just the team that
I'm with
played
you.
the best last night won the game.
Although Miami was making a bunch of mental mistakes, too. It was, I will say, and I know a lot of people are disappointed by the outcome, understandably, but the last 6 minutes of that game was about some of the best college football viewing you could expect.
The Georgia game, and then I knew this was going to be close. I think some people may have worried that Miami might have put a little bit more, 10 points or so. But the lines makers are usually pretty good at this.
It was impressive just how close they were.
And I kind of felt it would be a 7-point or less game. Either way, I didn't know if Ole Miss was going to win that or lose it. You get to this deep, you don't have any confidence in this stuff. You can make predictions, but you couldn't have pinned me to the wall and made me tell you who I thought was going to win, because I thought both teams were really good.
I thought if Ole Miss was going to lose in the playoffs, it was before the finals, it was going to be to Georgia. Once they beat Georgia, I thought it was straight on to the 19th. So
yeah, I think a lot of people did, but this Miami team, resilient, played their best football late in the season. Even dinged up and beat up, and like you said last night, making some mental mistakes. They've done that all year. They go through these windows where they just look terrible for a minute, and then they hit you with a quick strike, or Fletcher runs one from the cheap seats, or Carson Beck makes a play with his legs and keeps the play alive, and he did that a lot last night on third down.
Well, and the thing about it, and I guess this is a hallmark of teams that are very, very good, but they neither of them ever gave up. There was not a moment where it felt like they lost the momentum and just decided to get to the end of the game. I mean, even that very last drive by Ole Miss, I mean, nobody was giving up.
Just needed a little bit more time, I think. It would have. Those two could have battled it out all night. Seesaw is what it looked like to me. Whoever wins and did win that one, I feel has a really good chance of winning the national championship. Me personally, not to take anything away from Oregon or Indiana, but these two teams that played last night were extremely physical.
It was great. I mean,
both
I normally
were loaded in the trenches. It was a little better last night.
I think that's right. I'm normally, as we've discussed, I normally try to go to bed about right after the children go to bed, so somewhere in that 8 o'clock to 8:30 window. And I thought, well, I'll watch a little bit of the third quarter, and then in the morning while I'm doing prep, I'll catch up so that I've really seen the game. And it kept being, 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more, 5 minutes more, and then all of a sudden it was the end of the game. So it really was a great game, even if the end of it wasn't what we were looking for.
Well, and with Lucas Canero too, the kicker. I mean, what can you say about that young man that he doesn't already say for himself with multiple 50-yard field goals, a 58-yarder in the game, misses the one off the upright, then bounces one in almost identical.
Right. But it went in that time.
4 out of 5. He hit a 58-yarder career long, if I recall, last night, and multiple 50-yarders in the same game. I mean, without him, this team isn't the same team. I think if you took one guy, look, Trinidad Chambliss, Kwan Lacey, all that, but the game winners and keeping you close when the offense at times just was kind of sputtering a bit, wasn't able to capitalize with touchdowns. You could look over at good old number 17, and he's over there getting ready. He's warming up, and he knows his number's going to be called. And as a kicker, I was not one. That was the guy you never wanted to see coming in because you had to put your fortune on a kicker.
On one yeah.
And this guy here is a player. I mean, watching him all season has been amazing, but as the stakes have gone and gotten higher, he continued to deliver and make game-winning or game-tying or keep you close kicks that, like I said last night, without him, that's not a game. Well, that's just not a game without Canero.
Talk about performing under pressure.
Yeah,
very few of us have anything. I struggle to even imagine what that must be like.
That's why I wanted to mention him. With all of the things that get said and done and all the physicality of the game, you get to run this dude out there that doesn't get hit, doesn't take place, doesn't participate in contact drills, doesn't do any of that. He just sits over there and kicks for when his time's ready and his number's called. He better be, for that one play, a star. And he was, time and time and time again. And again, the kicker doesn't get a lot of praise when things don't go the way they should. But 4 out of 5 with a 58-yarder. 2 other 50-yard field goals and I think a 48 or something. So
the statistics were really
and then
impressive.
For the season, the same way. He was lights out. And that Ole Miss team, Trinidad Chambliss, Kwan Lacey, all of them. I think it took us a little long to get to the tight end last night. But DeQuan Wright is a beast. You should have been feeding him right out of the gate. But again, as you say, you got to feel your way through these games, and it just took. I think it was a heavyweight battle.
Yeah,
well, I hope we can get back. I hope we can get back. That was fun.
The way they played, and if folks come back, I doubt this will be the last time we see Ole Miss in the playoffs. Hopefully, soon.
Pete Golden seemed to enjoy the ride. How do you get a head coaching job, and really your first task is to win playoff games? You don't even have a team you've coached before as a head coach, and your first call of order is, hey, you got a playoff here to go in, and handled it remarkably. And
really
last night as well, when things looked ugly, cool as a cucumber over there.
Which would have been, speaking of pressure, you got an entire fan base that's relying on you after a pretty nasty little betrayal there. And he did well. He obviously everybody would have loved to have seen Ole Miss go on to the final. Well, I say everybody. The C Spire text line makes pretty clear that not everybody. I know I said yesterday everybody was pulling for them, but it's clear over here that's not the case.
And also as well, I thought the officiating was a little spotty at times. There was a hold, and then one of those push out of bounds on the quarterback could have been there could have been some things there that would have helped. But that's the way the game plays. They don't catch them all. And but yeah, I think I heard Kellum say, "I'm not very impressed with this Big Ten or whatever crew. We've had them 2 weeks in a row." And I know how he feels when you, as a guy that pitched, and you got an ump that you really just squeezed you at times. You hated those guys, man. They were terrible, and you didn't mind telling everybody.
Well, in a game that close, it matters.
It does. The plays,
little things, can make a
little
make
things
a big
make
difference.
big plays. They do. And
you don't think there's some tired people this morning?
Oh man, there was not a lot of traffic this morning. Honestly, yesterday seemed to be everybody was getting to work early. A lot of folks were probably preparing if they were not
getting it in on Thursday because they weren't on Friday.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna get there early. I'm getting out of here early today. I'm not spending all day doing this." And it was a little light on the wheels on the road this morning, but still a little misty, a little rainy out there today. Most of the state, you're going to see some weird and crazy weather through the weekend.
It didn't look like we got much overnight.
Not overnight, but as you get to Sunday, we're going to get back to that cold front blowing through, and you'll be down in the 20s up in North Mississippi, down in the 30s on the coast, with rain pretty much all over this weekend, up to 90% in many places. You really will not find a place in Mississippi where there's not rain projected through today, tonight, and potentially through Saturday night. But as you get to Sunday, it's going to get nicer and cooler, a little breezier too. So if you're duck hunting and that's what your thing is this time of year, the weather is getting right for you to get back in the woods and not sweat and get eaten up by mosquitoes. But 50% chance of showers in the Delta today and pretty much tomorrow as well. And then the same for South Haven. It'll be a little bit higher chance tomorrow, 30% today, tonight 90%, and tomorrow around a 40% chance of showers up in North Mississippi. And then on the coast, you will have, let's see here, sorry about that, I had a 20% chance of showers today, 80% tonight, showers likely tomorrow, and about 70 degrees. Like I said, as you get to Sunday, temps start dropping, and it'll get down to about 35 degrees Sunday night with no rain. So Sunday, we should be a pretty day if you want to play golf and do all that stuff.
There we go. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick around. We'll have more coming up after this.
Go head on and howl under the moonlight. 'Cause I got my baby by my side. Boy, she the sweetest thing you ever seen. The dog is howling, and the hound.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
With Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
I'll go back over yonder, baby. Way back over yonder across the hill.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community. At Community Bank, we're more than just a place to manage your money. We're your neighbors, your partners, and your trusted financial advisors. For decades, we've been rooted in our community, helping families, small businesses, and individuals achieve their dreams. Whether it's opening your first savings account, planning for a brighter future, or growing your business, we're here every step of the way. We're dedicated to our customers, committed to your success, and always here when you need us. Community Bank, rooted in our community. Member FDIC. Well, I'll say, Lance, we were talking about the game in the last segment. I let Liam stay up.
Good. He deserves it.
He watched the entire game. So if any of his teachers are listening, I apologize in advance for how tired we're going to send a 9-year-old in. But
he'll be ready. That guy's like a calculator, man.
I think he'll be all right. He was convinced that that there was interference on the last play.
I think there was. Again, there was some calls missed. There were things that could have gone Ole Miss's way that didn't. Again, the team that I still at the end, I have to say, the team that dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides, won third downs and controlled the time of possession, won the game. That's usually how it works. Ole Miss didn't have the turnovers. They played a fairly clean game, a little sputtery on offense and defense, but again, it was just one of those things. Yeah, could have bounced either way. You hate to see games come down to officiating. And now that it's over, you can't really harp on that stuff. But yeah, I saw some calls that. Had I been Pete Golding, I might have thrown a headset. Or I wouldn't be as cool as Cool Pete, honestly.
Well,
I had a tendency to sling some stuff if I got a little aggravated.
Understandably, but I'll say Liam's pretty good on the calls, and so if he thinks there was interference, then
I'm trusting him.
Then I think he was probably right. And I know. You hate to brag on us too much, but I think the network had really great coverage all through the day.
I love the way that the SEC network did the hometown.
Yes,
where we had Kellum and Darnell and Harry Harrison on the call. It was weird the way they had. Trying to watch it on your phone, it was very condensed because of the statistical categories on the left. But I really thought that was a cool addition. And Because honestly, the ESPN channel was very biased to Miami out of the gate. I mean, you had everybody picking Miami. There was nobody going, "Oh yeah, Ole Miss has got it," and we're, I would say, pretty waxing poetically over Miami most. So it was nice to get on over to the SEC side.
Yeah.
And again, I think the SEC learned something too. Ole Miss. A lot of folks never thought Ole Miss would be the last SEC team standing in a playoff race. It was. It says a lot about where college football and maybe the SEC is as well, the parity in the league. Is that good or bad? I'm not sure. As far as
it
good
depends
for Ole
on which
Miss,
side of the SEC you're
great
on, I
for
imagine.
Ole Miss, for the Alabamas and Georgias having other teams knocking at the door. I know that makes you uncomfortable. But hey, man, we're here.
Yeah, I
we're
agree.
here, baby. So,
well, enjoyed Caleb Saylor's work and also having having sports moved up to 1 o'clock yesterday
that's
was all
even
nice.
better. Yeah, it's nice to have an early afternoon sports fest.
And the Fiesta Bowl coverage has been brought to you by Good Hope Land and Timber, Yinling Flight, U.S. Senator Cindy Hyde Smith, Pillium Corporation, Barnes Crossing Auto Group, and the Mississippi Hospital Association all together. Made all that great coverage possible.
Well, I mean, you think there was some Yinling flights put down last night?
I have a feeling that there were some empty Yinling Flight bottles when all was said and done.
There'll be a lot of garbage cans today. Today is garbage day in most places.
Yes, I would not want to be cleaning that up.
Those guys need a tip. Leave a tip today to your garbage man.
That's right. That's exactly right. Here on Friday, January 9th, today is Law Enforcement Appreciation Day.
Nice.
Which every day ought to be Law Enforcement Appreciation Day, but if you're someone in law enforcement who's listening today, thank you very much for everything you do so that we can live safe. It's those are dangerous, taxing, tiring jobs that increasingly are becoming thankless on top of everything else, which is an absolute shame. So today is a great day to thank somebody in law enforcement, and if you're listening, thank you. And if you're not in law enforcement but you're listening, find somebody who wears a badge and give them a thank you today. I was a little nervous this morning. I passed 2 Capitol policemen on my way here, which, first of all, I very much appreciate everything the Capitol Police does. Thank you all. But I paid for my tag with a check. Uh-huh. And if you pay with a check, you have to wait until they mail you the tag.
Oh, goodness.
And so at about 5:57, as I'm coming down county line to get here, I saw a Capitol policeman, and I thought, this has the potential to be kind of an awkward interaction because I do comply with lawful orders, but I also need to be here at 6:06 when the son of a gun goes hot. So I'm glad he didn't. I had proof that I'd paid. I just didn't have it on the back of the car.
Well, you didn't get pulled over, though.
No. But it was, you know the feeling when you're sitting there going,
I think
I'm getting looked at.
Yeah, I thought you had an escort coming in.
They just carry me in on a sedan chair. That's how it works. Well, we had a few birthdays.
Well, got a few of them. The biggest one of the day would be Richard M. Nixon, President of the United States. He was born January 9, 1913 in Yorba Linda, California, and died April the 22nd, 1994 at age 81. Kind of a mixed bag as far as the president. Fairly paranoid guy. Got his shot eventually. Most people remember the battle with Kennedy, and as far as his political aspirations were put on hold for a while, then got in as president, had the Watergate scandal, and I'm not a crook. That's probably things people remember, and I think revisionist history goes back and looks at him a little differently than probably the way out the door. Wasn't he famous for getting us off the gold standard and amongst many other things that Richard Nixon did? What is your memory of Richard Nixon, would you say?
You know what
his legacy to you?
Well, I think the changing relationship with China was a big thing. He domestically was pretty progressive. I mean, I don't think he was a conservative in terms of domestic policy.
And at that time, too, domestic politics was a powder keg.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The thing that I was thinking about when you said that, he marked the real transition politically, going back to that Kennedy race, where television became so much more important. The
beads of sweat.
The presidential debate, if you listen to it, Nixon clearly won, but watching it, you had a far less attractive person who also, who was visibly sweating. And these little things, I mean, you think about it in this business, I remember, as we've discussed, back before we had high-definition cameras in here and we were broadcasting on C-Spire TV, you roll in a baseball cap, not having shaved, do your hit and leave. That's not the case. And same thing with those debates. It was fine to be. I mean, he was not an attractive human being running against a very good-looking guy. Suave. And those things started to matter then in a way that they didn't used to,
and adding up. And then the other thing, I don't remember. I'm sure that previous presidents were recording pretty much everything in the White House, but that really is what kind of got him in trouble, was relying so much on the recording system in the White House. Was it Butterfield and crew? And I mean, that was an interesting mix of characters that were involved with his administration that really had lingered around through administrations. You had Liddy and Hunt and all those guys in the Watergate break-in. It's the history of those dudes, and they were all over. I mean, that's a crew of guys back in the day that seemed to have had their fingers in a little bit of everything.
Absolutely.
So I just found that presidency very interesting. And
it's a fascinating time.
Progressive in some ways, very paranoid and very entrenched in other ways, and revolutionary in terms of whether you believe or not, the gold standard and opening up China and things of that nature. That opened at the point where Bush was one of the first that went back, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it was a unique presidency, a unique time in history.
And I think he would have been well regarded by history, but for the Watergate scandal,
got him,
which was totally, I mean, in addition to the fact that it was illegal, was totally unnecessary.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you were dealing with guys that should have known better.
Right.
If you know the story, I mean, these were spies. I mean, these weren't traditional house burglars. These are guys that were skilled in the arts of deception and breaking and entering and bugging and all that. And you get caught basically because you leave a piece of tape on a door,
right?
And you got a bunch of flashlights that are flinking around. And I think it was Forrest Gump that made the call, right? He saw him over there.
Right.
Yeah,
that's exactly
who did
right.
that. But yeah, J.K. Simmons, 71 years old today. That was another big name. Dave Matthews from the Dave Matthews Band.
There we go.
59. I've seen him a couple times in concert. It was always good. Crystal Gale, never saw Crystal Gale in concert, but that would have been a good one. She was 75 years old today. A couple of other notable figures here. Sergio Garcia, professional golfer, 46 years old. And then Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton, 44 years old today.
I saw that.
So, yeah, a bunch of, pretty good little birthday run there. Joan Baez, can't forget about her, or Jimmy Page. Joan Baez is 85 years old. She's a folk music legend, as most would know. And then Jimmy Page, 82 years old, Led Zeppelin guitarist.
Those are some good ones. I always appreciate the good birthday lists.
Sometimes it's brutal.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you get on there, it's like so-and-so who played the three-eyed alien number 2 on the second episode of Star Trek. Okay, well, that's a great
there's some
radio
things that happen on this
that.
day we can get to when we get back.
That sounds great, y'all. Look, this is Lucian Smith here with Lance on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Stick with us for more after this.
From theseabrook.com.
Let's go. Waking up the Magnolia State. Mornings with Richard Cross.
That's what it's here for.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. It is Friday, January 9th, 2026. A little jam band music, but not Dave Matthews there.
No, well, I had to go with Beanland, one of my favorites.
No, that's good. When it first started, though, I was like, oh, this must be some D&B.
That's a good Oxford music from the 90s, a three-piece band that all of them went on and did some bigger things and still play together, much like the Kudzu Kings, two great bands of that era. If anybody remembers those folks, give them a shout-out today on the text line. But the Kudzu Kings and Beanland, you had Cardinal Fluff, and that was back in the era where you had 311. You remember those guys out of Memphis, the rappers?
I remember the name.
They'd play everywhere, too. You'd just be going to class, and 311 would be playing over on the pavilion. So, this is really kind of fun. Back in those days, I loved the 90s, man. But we had a couple comments on the text line that had the dang bros so close but still competitive, and yeah. It was sad. Nixon made Elvis a DEA agent. Remember that? The movie Nixon and Elvis was a good one. Had If Ole Miss stops the run, they win by 12. I don't disagree with that at all. We have a Go Canes in there from the 662.
I saw that. I know. Yeah, we were talking yesterday about how, quote, everybody was behind the Rebels. It's been made very clear both on the text line and in some personal interactions I've had since being on the show yesterday that is too broad of a characterization.
Yeah. I think it was probably more split a little bit. But yeah, it was a game. It was one of those fun ones. But hey, on this day, thank goodness you weren't this girl. Good old Joan of Arc. She was put on trial these many years in 1431. 19-year-old Joan the Maid, as she was referred to in court, was put on trial in France on this day in 1431. She faced more than 70 accusations, including murder and heresy. Eventually confessed, resulting in a life sentence, and that was later actually overturned and escalated to an execution where she was burned at the stake, correct?
I think that's right.
That's right. Joan of Arc burned at the stake. And 19 years old, was leading men in battle. You can imagine in 1431 that was probably not the most popular choice of a woman, and the church probably thought the same thing. So I think she was accused of being a witch, amongst many other things. But one of the interesting stories in history there, we talked about Richard Nixon. We've got our birthdays out of the way. Another event that happened, and there's a couple of them that kind of work together on this day. First and foremost, let's go with the date in which it was this happened. Apple introduced iTunes on this day in 2000 and changed the world.
2000?
2001, yeah.
2000.
25 years ago. They later that year debuted the iPod, too. So, I mean, you think of this in 2001, as you're coming out of the 90s, you're early in the year. The internet's now in everybody's house. You still have dial-up in places, no high-speed internet. And now all of a sudden this phone thing, people are starting to use it as a Walkman, and they're starting to use it as many different things. Look at what we do with them now. Pretty much everything you can imagine you do with your phone. But that was one of the first times where the phone started becoming a little more multifunctional,
right,
and in your pocket, and you could take it everywhere.
I was a late adopter. I didn't have any Apple products until, I want to say, at least I didn't have an iPhone until 2011.
You were not the first person to wait a few years, because in 2007 on this day, another big day for Apple, CEO Steve Jobs announced the iPhone. So you had iTunes and the iPod in 2001. Fast forward 6 years later, and on the same day and 6 years later, you introduced the iPhone, and the rest is history, man. They just print money now.
No doubt. Yes, they absolutely print money. I was a BlackBerry guy until 2011.
Everybody in the political world. I remember being on the Hill in the late 90s and working in campaigns in the early 2000s, and everybody had BlackBerries. I mean, that was the thing, a little ball in your thumb and just whizzing around on that thing.
I miss the keyboard. I mean, I miss the old school brick breaker, but I mean, I miss the keyboard because you could sit there with a BlackBerry and without looking down, I mean, I could type you an essay on a BlackBerry because I knew where all the buttons were. If I try to do that on an iPhone, I've gotten a little bit better at it, but if I try to do it without looking on an iPhone, it may be just random letters for the whole way.
That was one of the great success stories that ended up imploding on itself was the BlackBerry, correct? I mean, it just did not innovate as everyone else started bringing new things online, not integrating the phone features into
That's
it.
right. Well, and I think the internet on it, or the web browser, which just was awful. I mean, you just couldn't. You get on an iPhone, you could pull it up like you were on your computer. And the BlackBerry, for me at least, they just didn't really innovate there, and so you got sick of it.
I was a fundraiser for Ole Miss. It had to be 01 range. 02 maybe, yeah. But I remember when Microsoft came out with the first iPhone. It was not an iPhone. It was just a little, it looks just like the phones we have now.
Right.
And you could log into everything. And T-Mobile was the only outfit that carried it. It was brand new, revolutionary. And you could tether to your computer at the office. So I could just enter the IP address, and then I could be on my computer at the office while on my phone in Biloxi talking to an alumni trying to shake some money out of them. And it was very helpful because you could update and do so many things with the profiles and phone numbers and emails, because that was something then in that era where we weren't really good at using email. We were still using snail mail. We were using mass marketing and, the 2% return on the mailers and stuff. But at that time, you started seeing technology was allowing us to kind of connect better with people.
Right.
And using emails. So that was a big piece of that. And I remember, and I still have the same phone number, because people are like, where'd you get a 380 number? And you tell them the story, well, that was back in like 04 or 03 when T-Mobile was the only game in town what we would call today a smartphone. There was no roaming. You didn't have to pay extra. It was like the freebie of the world. You'd pay your little bill and you had access to the whole world out there. And
these are going to be foreign. I mean, these are foreign concepts, probably even to the young gen. I mean, to the young
like,
gens, millennials
about?
And whatnot. Yeah, the idea of roaming or even long distance.
Yeah, I mean, you had to pay a fortune for that stuff.
No
back
doubt.
In those days, I remember pitching it to my bosses. It was like Gloria Kellum and Dean Wells and Herb DeWeese at the time, and they looked at me like a cow looks at a new fence. Like, why are you? What is this?
Right.
I'm like, trust me, this is revolutionary. And they're like, all right, we'll pay for it. And it was. Everybody after that started using them, not because of me, but it was mainly because everyone started seeing the value.
It makes such a big difference.
It makes a great difference. Well, 1861. State of Mississippi voted to secede from the United States.
That's a big one.
Yeah. 1788, Connecticut, they became the fifth state to join the United States. And New York in 1902, they introduced a bill to outlaw flirting in public.
That's a good use of the state's power.
Definitely.
Right there.
You want to definitely pull that one. And the United Nations headquarters opened in 1951 on this day in New York City. 1965, the film Goldfinger, starring Sean Connery. I guess it released on this day, but the story really is that in this day in 1979, a gift of song benefit concert was held at the United Nations General Assembly. Was it about 14 years after opening? Performers included Olivia Newton-John, Rita Coolidge, the Bee Gees, Rod Stewart, Donna Summer, John Denver, good old Chris Christopherson, ABBA, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. What a lineup for a night of song, a gift of song benefit concert.
For what was it benefiting? The UN?
The UN, I think, lining the pockets of the leaders of the world. Johnny Bench and Carl Yastrzemski, they were elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame on this day in 89, and rightfully so. They're officially inducted the following July. And let's see here. There was, the other one, 1991, MLB officially banned Pete Rose from being elected to the Hall of Fame for betting on baseball. The decision was ratified the following month. And then another big story that started unfolding this day in 2002. It was confirmed that Enron Corp was criminally being investigated by the U.S. Justice Department. The company had filed for bankruptcy in December 2001. The smartest guys in the room, Kenneth Lay and that crew, and they had it rolling and until they didn't.
Oh, I remember that. That was just extraordinary.
Well, it was interesting because it was one of the first companies that actually used shell companies by the hundreds to hide debt and to hide underperformance, where they only showed growth and great things in the Enron parent company, but they were very creative in piping things out into these LLCs and weird partnerships to really hide liabilities that as they went online with trading platforms and all this stuff in energy. If you'll remember, though, they were the guys that had such a finger in the dike of the California energy crisis and the Gray Davis, where he kind of basically got thrown out of office in favor of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I remember
because
that in 03, right, 04, somewhere there.
So, well, that was it was right before all that, if I remember. And then Enron blows up. So it was just I had a lot of friends that worked for them, much like WorldCom, and just lost everything. So one of those terrible stories out there. And then in 18, you had the mudslides.
Yeah, out in California.
They killed 20 people. The one that I didn't remember, though, that I went and did a little research on was 2018 President Trump canceled a program allowing 200,000 San Salvadorians, that is the capital of El Salvador, who had been affected by the earthquake in 2001.
But who'd been allowed to live.
Been allowed to live here for almost 20 years. So he basically said, nope, the conditions are better there. You got to go home. And so that was 200,000 San Salvadorians. And they had temporary status, so it wasn't a permanent status still. And he said, you got to go back to the house, man.
Yeah, that's tough after 18 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Well, y'all, this is Lucian Smith here with Lance Talbert on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have a lottery update coming up next.
Sit back and let that water heal my brain. I'm letting go of all my trouble. I think I'll be right here to stay. Well, the water keeps churning while my poor heart is burning. Muddy water, take my pain away.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
What is it? What's going on?
Mornings with Richard Cross.
It is what it is.
Yes, it is.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
It is time for your lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. There was no jackpot winner in Lotto America, but the jackpot for tomorrow, January 10th, is $12.3 million with an estimated cash value of $5.5 million. The numbers from Wednesday were 318, 25, 45, 50. The Star Ball was 4, and the All-Star multiplier was 2. Powerball also had no jackpot, but the jackpot for tomorrow is $124 million with a cash value of $56 million. The winning numbers were 15, 28, 57, 58, 63. The Powerball was 23. The Power Play multiplier was 2. Mega Millions, no jackpot winner. The jackpot for tonight is $199 million with a cash value of $90.5 million. The numbers from Tuesday, January 6th, were 9, 39, 47, 58, 68, with a mega ball of 24. That jackpot, that drawing is tonight, so go out and grab some of those tickets. The Mississippi Lottery has 3 new scratch-off ticket games on sale now at authorized retailers. Leading the way is Millionaire Maker, the lottery's first ever $30 scratch-off, featuring more than $125 million in cash prizes, including 10 $1 million top prizes. Also new are Classic Bingo for $5, with top prizes of $75,000, and Emerald Eights, a $2 game offering $20,000 top prizes. Plus, to celebrate Millionaire Maker, the lottery is offering its biggest bonus promotion ever with over $200,000 in cash giveaways. Non-winning tickets can be entered for a chance to win. Get details at mslottery.com or on the Mississippi Lottery official app and click the Bonus Promos tab. Few recent winners. A Terry woman won $5,000 on 2 Cash 4 tickets from the TNA Food and Gas and Sandy's Marathon in Jackson. A Clarksdale woman won $2,000 on a Lotto America ticket from Double Quick 105 in Clarksdale. A West Point woman won $100,000 on a $20 full of 5,000s ticket that she bought at Murphy's Oil, number 7455 in West Point. And a New Augusta woman won $100,000 on a $30 Millionaire Maker ticket from a Circle K store in New Augusta. Those are just a few happy people on Savannah's list there who won from playing the Mississippi Lottery. Remember, you cannot win if you don't play, and play responsibly. That is your Mississippi Lottery update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery Corporation. Well, this is kind of cool, Lance. The Elon Musk and the governor were tweeting last night. The governor, well,
we got the big center coming.
That's right. They announced this $20 billion project in DeSoto County, another data center that's going to support the AI arm of X, which I think may be a separate legal entity, but XAI, Elon Musk's big AI play, is building a data center up there. And the governor yesterday tweeted about it, and Elon Musk, I guess I shouldn't say tweet, the governor put an X message out, and Elon Musk shared it and said he is excited to invest in Mississippi. That was a message he sent at 2:37 a.m. Central, so you may have missed it if you weren't paying close attention to X at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Honestly, I was not. I was not up. I had I was kind of crying in my Cheerios after the Ole Miss game and sleeping in. I woke up this morning and I must have been dreaming pretty well because I was out of it, man. I was dreaming about some kind of roots and herbal curing, and I was out west, like farming or something, and I don't remember what it was crazy. I remember waking up at like 4 going, what in the world did I eat last night to put me in that state of mind? So no, I was coming out of the dream world at 3:30. So we got the governor, we have Tate Reeves, we have them tweeting together. We got a big data center coming.
It's exciting
My
stuff.
question to you on all of these huge data centers, at what point in time do they become a national security concern, given the nature of what, how interconnected they are to the systems that run the government, military, polling, all these,
That's a good,
I'm just
valid
curious,
question.
And how do you deal with that? Is obviously we adapt, but is that where we, have a little bit more presence in these places of military or law enforcement?
That's a good question on the physical side of it. I would guess, just given the nature of the work that a lot of these things are doing, that they're already on the private side investing a boatload into staying safe. But I hadn't thought about the physical piece of it, because you have to assume every day some hacker is trying to hack. I mean, thousands of people are trying to hack into them.
They got armies of them over there in Korea and China and Russia. They want your stuff, man.
No doubt about it. They want all your. They want all your stuff
on Temu, man.
Exactly. Y'all, that's been a quick 1 hour of radio. Thanks for being with us. Stick with us. We got more Mornings with Richard Cross coming up after this break. But first, Fox News, followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
Mountains win again. The mountains win again.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Wake up.
Yes, do it.
Wake up.
Come on.
All right.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Wake up.
I'm paying for last night's been drowning memories again. I stumbled through the Bible looking for some aspirin. And an empty box of Kotex reminds me we're through. I'm at the breakfast table trying on solutions.
Welcome back, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. This hour of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by MWG Employer Services. Running a business is tough, and if you're struggling with HR, benefits, and payroll, you are not alone. That's where MWG Employer Services come in. They can provide a full range of employer services, plus a custom plan that fits you. Call today at 601-206-7966 or go to mwgemployerservices.com. Well, Thomas in Greenwood, not a fan of the data centers. First, I'll say I'm glad Thomas chimed in, because when we got to the third block of the 6 o'clock hour and he had not, I almost texted him because I was starting to get worried about you,
Digging
Thomas.
around on the HB1 thing, he is always on top of that issue as well. Making he said we'll have 2 American employees and the rest will be HB1s. But that's he stays on it. We need a watchdog.
Oh, I agree.
And
Look,
he's
I
on
agree.
top of that.
I
for
agree.
us.
And that's one of the criticisms people have of some of these data center projects, is that they don't have a lot of jobs associated with them. But it's a massive investment for starters, which is going to have a big effect on property taxes, which will be revenue going in from a private entity rather than coming out of your pocket to fund schools, to fund county and city operations. And it's money that's coming in, and it helps signal Mississippi as an opportunity for technological investment. And so I think they're a positive, so long as they're not increasing people's energy costs. And
That'd be my big worry. Those things are extremely demanding on energy, and one day we'll get to a point where we're going to have to invest in the grid a little bit, which I think we've had an aging energy grid for some time. And so you always got to keep pouring money into the resources, the means of production to keep everything humming along. And you just hope we don't get to a point where you're generating so much electricity, but you can't get it to where you need to get it to because we haven't the infrastructure. Kind of like roads, you build a neighborhood out there and it's a 2-lane road and it takes everybody an hour to get to work because now you just figure and hope that we haven't put the cart before the horse. But it seems to me that as a state, Mississippi has been extremely on top of recruiting business, successfully doing that, especially in the high-tech and more innovative fields, bringing Mississippi, I would say, online to be a player. And that's nice to know because you got to keep your talent here, too. You don't want all your talent to drain and leave because the opportunities for high-tech and innovative-type jobs that are attracting young folks are gone. They're not here. Well, we're building them.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we want people to stay here. We want people to know they got an opportunity to have high-quality careers here. And I do think these sorts of investments, even though they're not – it's not one of the things that generates 5,000 jobs in a factory, which I know the governor and Bill Cork and his team are all working hard to continue, and they've had success in that area as well. But I think the data center investments are good for the state, and I imagine we're going to keep on seeing them.
Well, and as well, I think as automation continues, somebody's got to maintain the robotics. Somebody's got to maintain the machines. You bring in manufacturing as you have the baseline to absorb those issues, right? You don't bring in a huge plant when you can't put the energy into it or you don't have the workers available. So I think these are the baseline things that you get done. Obviously, they're high-tech, a lot of energy, data centers, but as I see, manufacturing and things like Amazon, you just look at how it's innovated over so many years. They employ a ton of people right here in Mississippi. If you go down to Quick Time at lunch, you'll see hundreds of drivers. And hundreds of, it's amazing.
Oh, absolutely.
And 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you didn't see that to me. So I think there will be jobs associated with it, but you have to create the conditions in which the employers go, yeah, you got everything we need.
That's right.
And we're bringing it here.
It's extraordinary what those AI systems can do. I mean, the ChatGPT is launched, I think, just in a limited basis, but I assume there'll be a wide rollout. A health feature that connects to all your different health apps on your phone. We were talking about all the things that an iPhone or another smartphone can do, but where it'll connect to, all the different apps that track information about your health and then help you make medical decisions, sort of as a way of supporting. I mean, obviously, it shouldn't replace your doctor, but the sort of things those things can do and the speed at which they can do it. I mean, it is People may or may not like it, but it's the future.
Well, I remember there was, I'm trying to remember the doctor's name here at UMMC that I believe did one of the first, what do you call it, laparoscopy or about robotics, though. And it was a decade plus, probably 20 years ago. But the innovation and just the health side as well, to me, is something that I'm anxious to see. As we've gotten better, things get smaller. The intrusiveness. As technology is increased, we've seen less intrusiveness in the medical world. Where I can tell you, my father had to go through chemo for leukemia, and the way that they're able to isolate, identify, and customize medicines now for each customer, each client, makes a huge difference in outcomes, and that comes from the ability to compress and pull apart so much data that maybe a decade ago we probably couldn't have done.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see the satellite effects of these investments to me in the infrastructure. Again, I'd love to see the bridge over at Bovina, across the Yazoo River get done at some point. I think with all this, we could get that done, but that's neither here nor there. Well, I had something I wanted to ask you is yesterday. Yeah. We talked about putting the toothpaste back in the tube with 56 types of conflicts ongoing since 2022. Thought you did a remarkable job. So I wanted to challenge you. I wanted to challenge you in your expertise again today in the field of the referendum. Now, it's been a long time. Mississippi has been battling this referendum issue. I think it goes back to early 1900s. The first time that it was implemented was, I believe, 1912. Years later, it was kind of put out to pasture, and it took until the 70s really for it to kind of come back around. Bill Elaine was an attorney general running for governor, took some interest in it. So by 92, the ballot initiative or the referendum had been put back on the books. We saw what the marijuana and also the flag were two that came to my mind that were two referendum issues.
Right.
But since then, we've seen it be removed. So let's go from there. What is the referendum ballot initiative? Why is it important? Why has it been such a contested thing in the state? And we were one of the only states, I believe, that had a statewide ballot initiative for many years. So give us the lowdown, Luke.
So the recent history, you're right, there was a flag referendum in 2001. That was a little different because the legislature specifically authorized it, and it was kind of a punt at the time. The Mississippi Supreme Court said that we had never adopted a flag, and so rather than have the legislature pick a flag, they essentially let the people vote whether they wanted to keep the flag from the 1890s. But Mississippi has had, you're right, a constitutional initiative process that allowed you to go through some steps to put something on the ballot that would amend the Mississippi Constitution. And what was done with it was ultimately the marijuana initiative was the catalyst on this. It required a certain number of signatures from each of the 5 congressional districts. And through the 90s until the 2002 election in Mississippi, we had 5 congressional districts. And then it dropped down to 4. But we never changed the Constitution to allow it to be done, to change the requirements where you had to get it from the 4 congressional districts. And so what the Supreme Court decided, I want to say it's about 5 years ago, was that you couldn't satisfy the requirements of the constitutional referendum process because we no longer had 5 congressional districts. And I'll say, I think that was the right decision legally because, we believe in the words that are put in the law or the Constitution have to have meaning. It shouldn't just be a group of judges who get to change them to their preferences. But there's been this effort in the legislature since, Lance, to try to bring back the referendum process. And so far it has been unsuccessful. And one of the questions is what the threshold ought to be. How many signatures should you have to get to be able to put something on the ballot? And I think the concern, you look at a state like California where the ballot process is pretty robust, they essentially just govern by referendum. I mean, the legislature out there, it's not clear what they do because so many of these things get settled
they count
by
their
referendums.
Money.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they take a big old paycheck and a bunch of benefits.
To me, one of the unique things about California, too, and it really drew my attention, was the high-speed rail, the amount of money they blew on that. And then now you're looking at homelessness. I mean, these are 2 industries. Stealing money from the public has become an industry.
They're good at figuring out how to take taxpayer money and put it in their pocket. So,
dang right about. We'll continue
we'll
this
have
later.
More later in the show on this. We got a great show coming up. Stick with us. We'll have Jonathan McMillan, a representative from Mississippi District 58, coming up in the next segment. Thanks, y'all.
From the Venable Glass.
In the car, at home, or at work, it's always free to listen to SuperTalk Mississippi and Mornings with Richard Cross.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Well, with us in studio is Representative Jonathan McMillan, who represents Madison County in the legislature. How you doing, Representative?
Hello, sir. Good morning. We had a little rain outside coming in this morning.
Oh, has it started?
Well, oh yeah, man. I got up this morning. It was lightning outside. The dog got up, started whimpering. So that was anyway,
it's always a good way to start your morning.
That's right, ain't no doubt. So
it was threatening. It was threatening at 4, but it was supposed to rain all night, but it didn't look like it had yet.
No, I think it started. Like I said, I had the first whimper was around 5 this morning, so I got up and let him out, and he did his thing, and. Anyway, it is what it is. So,
well, how's the session going so far? I know we're only 3 days in.
3 days. I mean, we're 3 days in. We got, like I said, I talked to some folks yesterday. I mean, we've obviously got a long way to go. But I mean, you guys talking and everybody kind of talking around. I mean, we're taking up some pretty big and pretty important issues this year, I think, and that's kind of been our MO since I've been there. This is my year 3, so I mean, it's nothing really new for me to kind of rock on down the road that way. So
it does feel like a change because it used to be. The kind of the first couple weeks at least, it didn't seem like anything happened. Now, I think everybody knew people were having conversations, getting bills together. It wasn't like people were literally just sitting around playing cards.
That's right.
But it does feel like things are moving a lot faster down there right now.
Well, I mean, it was, at least on our end of the building, with Jason coming in being speaker, I mean, it was, pretty clear pretty early on, we're here to do some work. We're here to, move some agendas and try to do things right for the state. We're not going to sit back and not going to wait, and we're going to take up some big issues, and we're going to talk about it, discuss it, and move on down the road. So there again, that's kind of been, at least for my 2 years and my third year, I'm just kind of used to that speed. So, and that's good with me. I mean, if I'm gonna take time, like I tell everybody, if I'm gonna take time away from work, family, and this and that, we're gonna do it in there and try to do something and try to look at issues, and hopefully, when we funnel it all down at the end of this, session, that we've got something that everybody can be proud of.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think that's the right attitude. Because to your point, I mean, nobody gets rich being a legislator. At least shouldn't. If they're getting rich being a legislator, there's a problem we need to talk about.
Lance, come on. No, you're not. This is. I mean, most of us down there. I mean, we are sacrifice. It is a sacrifice, but it's something that. I mean, I know it sounds political when you say it, but it is truly a call to service, and I think this is. Is about as pure a service as that you can do if you do it the right way. So,
yeah, I think that's right.
For sure.
What do you see as being sort of the every year there are a couple issues that tend to dominate? I mean, what do you think will be kind of the 26 issue? I can think of one for sure.
I have no clue, Lucian. I don't really know. No, I mean, obviously everybody coming in this session. I mean, the school issue with whatever you want to call it, education reform, education freedom, school choice. I mean, however you want to phrase that. I mean, that's kind of at least on the House agenda and House side. I mean, that's been very clear. Speaker White, that's his number one thing. So I mean, obviously we rolled out a pretty large bill. I guess Wednesday. So I mean, we're looking at that, taking that all in. At least I'm still honestly. Haven't read the whole bill yet. I mean, I'm working on kind of.
It's 500 pages long.
Yeah,
it takes a day or two.
Obviously, I've got some. Got a breakdown of it and know the high points. But I mean, when you get in the details, there's a lot of words in there. So yeah.
Do you, at this point, I know you're still digesting it, and there's a lot in there. As I know, and most people who are listening to the show know, like the final form of the bill is not going to look exactly like the one that was introduced yesterday.
So I had literally yesterday. I was driving in, and I called one of my administrators back at Madison County, one of my principals. And I just said, "Man, look, we had talked. Of course, I've spent probably a year and a half just." Trying to kind of understand more processes, procedures, kind of how we do education in Mississippi. What does that look like? If you put your business hat on, what would I do if I'm running a business? What does this really look like? What are the problems? How can we go in and maybe adjust, tweak, fix? Fortunately, in Madison County, who I represent, we do a pretty good job. I mean, we have some great schools. We have some great leaders. We have some outstanding teachers. So. And that's why you see the product that you see at the end of the day when it comes out. And hey, we're top of the list in education across the state. And honestly, I think it's 90+% of the people in Madison County go to public schools. Right. So I mean, you put that hat on, and it's like, man, all right, we're doing pretty good, but. Kind of like, I'm sure y'all were talking about football this morning. I played a lot of football, played a lot of sports, run a lot of businesses. It's like, man. Are we just going to sit back and just say, hey, we're good, we're there, we've reached the top? Are we still going to try to push and try to really dive in and, hey, how can we make this a little better? How can we tweak? How can we be creative? How can we innovate? Especially whenever you see, kind of what's going on across the educational landscape across the country. I mean, you see other states, other cities, other municipalities doing different things there. And we want to continue our forward momentum. We don't want to go backwards. So let's look into this and let's really dive in and see if we can make what we're doing better. And I think that's the right approach.
Yeah, that ought to be what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Have you? I mean, where are you on the legislation right now? Are you still processing it, or are you
no?
for it?
No. I mean, well, you say for it, you say processing. Yes, I mean, I'm a lot. On our end of the building, of course, I haven't really looked and seen everything that the Senate did. I know they passed a few measures, and it's coming over, and I hadn't read the language there. There again, and like I said, I haven't read the language in our 550-page bill. I mean, I've kind of got the high points, but I've still got to dive in there. But when it comes to some of the things that we're doing, yeah, I think absolutely that's going to help the entire educational system in the state. So. But it's a lot. So
right.
You've got to take that and dial that in. And, all right, what does that look like for Madison County? What does that look like for my district? And then blow that up. What does that look like for the entire state? So it is a lot to take in. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of, questions that I need answers from some of my people back in Madison. Like, what does this look like? If we do this, you're going to have to change maybe a process or a procedure back at the school. Can you do that? Does that going to cost you any extra money? Same some of the stuff with MDE. If we're changing this, we're changing that. What does that look like? So yeah, there's a lot of questions that we just want to make sure we're checking off all the boxes, and those questions are getting answered. And at the end of the day, there again, like you just said, what we're starting, what rolled out, Wednesday, it's probably not going to be what is the final version come 90 days from now. So, but what my fear is, I guess, or what shouldn't happen is, I think, like you said, where are you at on it? And it almost presents a scenario where you have to pick a side. And
you got some time before you have to.
I'll dive into that a little bit. I've thought about that, and really, and if you look at education in the state, if you're trying to kind of get the best possible product for this, the entire educational system, it doesn't matter public school, private school, charter school, homeschool. Why do we have to pick a side here? I mean, why are there sides when it comes to education? So I've tried to kind of, my mindset has been like, let's stay right here in the middle. I get you have, you have the system that's here now, and then you have some agenda stuff going on over here. But really, let's look in the middle and let's try to do the right thing, and let's try to, make sure that the measures that we're putting out there is best for the entire educational system, and we're continue moving in the right direction there.
I think that makes an awful lot of sense. I would assume you're getting a lot of feedback from administrators and from folks in your district, because the sense that I get is, and I'm a supporter of moving in the direction of educational freedom, and I'd like to see us do something pretty comprehensive. But I also know there is some nervousness in high-performing districts because, I think there's some people who think, and I disagree, to be clear, but who think if it's not broken, let's not fix it.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, you go back, I'm not even on the education committee, and last year, we tried to roll a portability bill out of the House, which it did pass the House, overwhelmingly passed the House last year. But when that bill kind of came up, obviously I'm looking at it, and I'm like, all right, I'm trying to apply, what does this look like for Madison County? So take the bill, go back to my folks back home. Let's read it. Let's look at it. Let's see what the words say. So there were some questions. One of the main concerns just on the portability piece was a sole discretion language, which allowed the receiving districts the sole autonomy, sole discretion to control how that process works. So we tweaked some language. Fortunately, there again, Speaker White. Chairman Robertson, was able to come in. Let's look at this and see, what this looks like for some of these receiving districts, because we don't want to put any more burden on them.
Right.
So, in Madison County, let's be honest. We're growing. We have a lot going on. So, at the end of the day, capacity is an issue there. So we've got to make sure that we're not flooding the schools. Not that we don't want some of these kids in, but we have to take care of the folks that are there.
Capacity.
Yeah. So literally for the past year, it's been hard enough to tell folks that, look, this is not going to flood our schools with people coming in. So, It's just about getting the right message out there and people reading the words and really understanding what we're trying to do instead of taking buzz bites and buzzwords from different groups and just taking that. Yeah, taking that is.
We're coming up on a break, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Can you stick with us for another second?
Yeah, absolutely, love to. Yeah.
Y'all stick with us. This is Lucian Smith here with Jonathan McMillan, Representative District 58. 58. I was going to put you in 54. Y'all stick with us. We'll have more right after this.
But don't you believe them?
From the Seabrook.com.
This segment of Mornings with Richard Cross is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Stay social during the show at SuperTalk Mississippi on Facebook. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi and the SuperTalk app.
My transistor radio comes from far away. And when it's night over here, over there, it's a breaking day.
Good morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Still here with Representative Jonathan McMillan, who represents Madison in the legislature. What all is in your district? I know it's Madison County, but
So, yeah, I've got, it'd be like the east part, I guess if you want to say Madison proper, the city of Madison. So I'm kind of Sandalwood, North Bay, that side, and kind of come all the way up 51, but then encompass the majority of Gluckstadt. I take in all of Gluckstadt, go all the way out to Livingston out that way. So, yeah, it's a great, the best district in the state of Mississippi.
there we
sir.
go, number 58.
There you go. That's it.
That area has just changed so much. I grew up in the Jackson area, and that used to be the country. But it's not the country anymore.
Even me, high school, junior high.
Not Madison the city, to be clear.
Well, even Madison the city, though. You got to think about it. Heck, when I was in high school, right there to Madison exit, all we had was a Texaco. On the west side of the interstate, there was nothing. There was no Home Depot. There was nothing. And you get on Bozeman Road at that point. You get to the end of Bozeman Road. Lake Caroline was out there. Still had dirt roads, and everything was agriculture fields out there.
We used to go fish at Caroline before they built many of the houses, and I thought it was just a lake out in the country. Then later I realized.
Heck, I tell folks back in the day. If we, of course, I'm junior high school. They were selling lots out there for $3,500 an acre. So it's like, and that was expensive then. Like, wait a minute, $35.
I remember Lake Cavalier was like that too. Back when in the '80s, Lake Cavalier was kind of the place folks over in Rankin County would buy land in a house. They called it a cabin.
That's right.
Cabin, man. Those are nice.
So my first house when we got married, we lived right there at Lake Cavalier, right off of Coker Road. We had it was a little 2-bedroom, 2-bath right off of Coker right there. So that's a great area out there too. So, but yes, I don't know. We sold that house, and I should have never sold that. There's no telling what that little 2-bedroom, 2-bath on an acre and a half is worth now. So,
no doubt about it.
Anyway, goodness gracious.
Getting back to the education freedom discussion we were having, obviously it's early in the session. Senate has put some stuff out. The House has introduced their bill. Do you think? I think about tax reform. Took several years before the big tax initiative finally got passed. Sure. Do you think this is the year where something meaningful in education choice passes, or is this going to be another discussion?
Well, Lucian, there again, my limited knowledge of all things in the legislature, me being there, this is my third year there. I can't necessarily go back in history and say, well, this, and this, and that, But, talking to some folks that have been there, I know some of this stuff, this has been coming up. This is 14, 15, 16, 20 years that we've talking about some of this stuff. So, at the end of the day, you look at what the Senate's done, you look at what the House has done. I think there's this year you see with the Senate passing things early and then us rolling what we've rolled out. Yeah, I think something's going to pass. We're gonna come to some agreement on something this year, versus what we ended up with last year.
Right.
So I honestly just hope there again, like we say, this is the fourth day going into session, that we can have those discussions, that those discussions will happen, because that's the way the process is supposed to work.
That's right.
You shouldn't go in there, kind of fill in the room, if you want me to say, at the Capitol or at the House, talking to a lot of members. There's a lot of members that are really trying to dive in and really try to figure this thing out. What works best for my district? What works best for my people? What works best for the entire state of Mississippi? So, we're there trying to figure this out, but you have, like you said, you have so many folks out there that are, almost kind of forcing the hand, saying, hey, you got to pick a side here. And that's just not, I just don't think that's the way that this needs to go down. Let's talk about this stuff. Let's throw it all out there on the table. And there again, like I told my administrator yesterday driving to the cap, hey, in 90, when we get done with the session in 90 days, hopefully what's filtered back down is something that everybody in the educational community and everybody in the state of Mississippi can be proud of. But it is a process. There again, what's rolling out with the House today, there's lots of great things in there, but we need to talk about that. That may change. What rolled out in the Senate and what they passed, probably some good stuff in there. I hadn't read all that language, but, hey, that's probably going to change as well.
You're here till April. Yeah, there's a whole process.
It's the process. We've just got to make sure we have really good discussions from both sides. And then I think, you let everybody put their eyeballs on it and you funnel that down. And I think we'll end up this session with something that everybody can be proud of. So
well, if you've got questions or comments, send us a text at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. One of the other issues that I think will be significant this year, the Senate's already put their proposal out. I'm sure there'll be one from the House, is on the retirement system. And I would think in your district you've probably got a lot of retirees or state employees who are paying close attention to that.
Absolutely.
Do you have a sense of whether where the House will end up on PERS or what you think we ought to be doing there?
I know Representative Hank Zuber, they had select committee, looking at some of that, and I know that we're going to move with some bills, come out with some bills, drop some bills, dealing with that. Obviously the Senate, shoring kind of what they did, this past week. There's going to be some movement there. But, talking about that, and even in our educational reform bill, if you look at that, one of the provisions there was to bring employees back from 35 years to 30 years. So, some of that is being looked at, being addressed. And then, of course, you funnel back down even further to our law enforcement, community, first responder community. Obviously Randy Tucker is my sheriff in Madison County, and we've had conversations, really with him and all my chiefs in Madison County for the past year about some of the concerns there with the recruitment and retention of officers. So, yes, all of that is going to be looked at. And there again, you kind of go back into it. We start with a big funnel, and we funnel that stuff down, and hopefully at the end of this session, we're going to have something that those guys are going to be proud of. Like, hey, this makes sense because, hey, District 58, Jonathan McMillan's opinion, 35 years is a long time for some of these guys. But I understand, the money side of it too. When you got taxpayers and you got a system that honestly isn't working exactly from a dollar side the way it needs to work, we got to look in that and shore that up too. So,
yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And nobody is taking anything away from the current retarees. That is an important point.
Trust me, I've got two parents that are retired, and I like to go to my mama's house and eat her biscuits. So yeah, I'm not going to mess that up.
One of the questions that's come in on the C Spire text line that we often get with legislators is whether and Lance and I were talking about this in the first block at 7 o'clock about the voter initiative. You think there's going to be an effort to revive that this year?
Honestly, I hope so. There again, you look at what our side of the bill in the House past 2 years. I think we've rolled something through and passed something out of the House. I think the biggest concern there is at least for me in my mind, is that, some of these things you do want the people, that's constitutional, want the people to have some say somehow, even though we are elected by them. But, hey, I'm not saying we're not always perfect. There could be some oversight there. But in that instance, I don't want, outside entities from outside of the state influencing some of our decisions and what we have going on. I think that's the crux of it, and that's how do you filter some of that out?
To me, that's the trickiest question, because if you're a big, well-funded out-of-state interest and you're going to invest, $1, $2, $3, however many $1 million into something like this, I would think you would try to make sure it was as favorable to you as possible, even if it has some stuff that a legislator might not vote for if they were actually sitting there reading the bill.
That's exactly right. You're exactly right. So, no, there's going to be discussions there as well. There again, hopefully we can come back there and agree to something there. So, like I said, lots of issues rolling this year, lots of talks. So.
There's one of the questions on the C Spire text line here is about mobile sports betting. You see that being a topic of the year?
Yeah, there again, I voted for that past 2 years. I think that's where we are in Mississippi in the state. I mean, that kind of just makes sense. I mean, it's definitely bringing more dollars and funding more dollars in because it's already going on. I mean, you talk to some of the reps and legislatures that live on some of these outlying communities that are bordering communities. I mean, they go weekend. They go to the gas stations across state line, and they're piled up with folks, using their telephone sports betting. So that's money that can be generated here in the state, and I think any dollar that we can get to fund various entities is not a bad thing. So yeah.
On the one more question that's come in here on, do you have a position on private school choice, on the ability of somebody to take some of the money through these educational savings accounts, or are you still processing that one?
Well, I mean, we talked about that briefly off air a little bit, and I think that's one of the the sticking points, at least with my folks back home, Madison County, some of the school districts, because they're saying that if you take that money out, that's going to totally defund the public schools, so. But you take that argument, and I know what we've presented, at least in our bill, it's at 12,000. I think we have 12,500 voucher ESAs that we're presenting there. We're putting that into two different pots as well. So, I mean, in Madison County, not a lot of folks are probably going to be under that 300% poverty level. So, I mean, literally you're talking maybe 6,250 vouchers that would go across the whole state. So if you really filter that down and put that in Madison County that could actually take advantage of that, which it is, people do need that. I mean, I told you a scenario with a lady that texted me the other day that needs that. I think that's not going to totally, turn the apple cart upside down.
Hey,
and we continue some of that.
Jonathan, thank you. So, can you stick with us for one final segment?
Yeah, sure. I'm here. Yeah.
From the Venom.
Interviews, weather, sports, all right here, all morning long. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
This is Lucian Smith in for Richard here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Well, we're still here with Representative Jonathan McMillan, who represents Madison in the Mississippi House of Representatives. Just before the break, you were talking a little bit about the public to private piece of the school choice and sort of where you were and what kind of feedback you were getting.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the, obviously in the bill, that's one of the things that everybody's talking about. I mean, should public money go to a private entity? Should that happen? Of course, last year, we were talking about some of this stuff, and if you look, I mean, government right now, I mean, there's so many different instances where public money's going to going to private entities. So it's like, how can you pick and choose that? And there again, look, whenever I say this, I'm not trying to push an agenda. I'm just trying to look. There again, trust me, I'm not the smartest tool in the toolbox a lot of times, but I'm just trying to put some sort of common sense hat on, and let's try to dial this thing in and really talk about it and figure it out, So, but if you're looking specifically at what we're talking about doing, at least our House proposal, what we're throwing out there, 12,500 vouchers, you're breaking those up into a couple of different pools. You're trying to get the lower income folks the ability to move out of a situation. And I'm not there again. You don't want to create sides here. You don't want to sit here and say that the public schools, wherever they are bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that even in Madison County, where there again, we have the best public schools in the state of Mississippi, I talk to people every day, and there are one-off situations to where they may not quite fit there. I explained, I had a lady text me literally, knowing her kids are in the same class as mine, and I didn't know fully her whole story, but she was in a school, and there was some things going on, and she needed to try to get her kids. She felt that was a better situation to move her kids out talking to administrators and teachers. I mean, that happens. I'm not going to say all the time, but a lot of times, even in Madison County, where you have the best of the best, and when we do a great job with what we've got going on, there are one-off situations there. This lady's texting me. She's working 18 hours a day. She's trying to figure out how to pay for this. She's trying to do this. So, I mean, what do we do for those folks?
Right.
So, I mean, you roll out there and say, hey, we have 12,500 vouchers available. We put them into 2 different pots. And there again, in Madison County, so you're saying 6,250 really vouchers, because most of the people in Madison County are not below the poverty level, at least in my district. So you take that 6,250 and put that across the state, you're not talking about a ton of people that you're not going to totally flip the apple cart upside down, at least in my district in Madison County, but you could help a few folks. So then it comes to then you filter that down. Well, all right, do we have the money to do that? Can we afford that? So I think we've scaled it back enough to where we're like, we're not throwing 50,000 or 30,000 or 100,000 vouchers out there. So we're starting with a really small number. And yeah, then it comes in my head, I'm like, well, I mean, do I want to put money to go fix a pothole, or do I want to put money to maybe a kid that could flourish and put him in a better situation? And at the end of the day, that kid is no telling where he's gonna go. I mean, in life, I mean, what business is he gonna run? What is he gonna create? So honestly, yeah, I think I'd rather put it in the kids' hands and the parents' hands than going to fix a pothole. So there again, I'm not. Well, very sharpest tool in the toolbox. I'm just trying to put my common sense hat on and try to figure it out that way.
I think you're right.
Maybe I'm wrong.
At the end of the day, it ought to be A, I think parents know what's best for their children, and B, what we ought to be asking ourselves is, does this produce the best outcomes for students? Not, does this produce the best outcomes for systems, which has been the focus under the Democrats for too long.
That's right. It's there again. Like I said, I talked to my administrators and my folks, and I'm staying totally in the middle here. People say, well, all these politicians are saying they're for the kids. Well, honestly, I mean, yeah, we want the best possible system, best possible educational system in Mississippi that we can have. And I think throwing these ideas out there and vetting them and talking about them, I think there again, if we're not talking about this stuff and not trying to move the needle, what are we doing?
Well, exactly.
I go back. Okay, I go back to this. I was on the select committee on education. The very first meeting we had, Lori Todd Smith, she was there. Lori Todd I think she was basically the one of the main drivers for 2013 and the reading gate that we did. So I listened to her. There was another lady there from D.C. Listened to them talk. Got through with it. The question I asked Lori Todd, I said, because you could tell she was passionate about Mississippi. She wants to see us do well, even though she's in a position in D.C. right now. I said, if we don't do anything, if we do nothing, and we just continue to fund and do what we've always done, where is our educational system going to end up 4 or 5 years? Are we going to continue moving forward? Or are we going to go backwards with some of the innovation that other states are doing? She said, without a doubt, y'all will go backwards if you continue doing the same thing.
I think that's exactly right.
So you put that hat on. I mean, we're continuing trying to move the needle. We're not saying anybody's doing anything wrong, but let's continue moving the needle for education in Mississippi. Let's talk about some of these ideas. Let's see where we end up in the session.
Amen. Well, this is Lucian Smith. Stick with us. We've got Fox News followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News coming up next. We've had Jonathan McMillan, representative from Madison, on.
My name is Tree Top.
Start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
The sun and the air, all the shyness that is criminal.
Good morning, everybody. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. At Community Bank, we're here for every part of your financial journey. Looking to manage your personal finances, our banking services make it simple, secure, and tailored to you. Ready to grow your business? We offer expert guidance and custom solutions to help your businesses thrive. Dreaming of a new home? Our mortgage specialists are here to make the process seamless, all designed with you in mind. We're more than just a bank. We're your partner for life's biggest moments. Community Bank, rooted in our community, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Lance, we were talking earlier about the referendum process, and I know I promised y'all Representative Jansen Owens. We're still hopeful he'll be with us, but he's not here at the moment. So Jansen, come on in if you're around. But we were talking a little bit earlier about the referendum process and why that's been slow to come back. So just to go back to the history, we were talking about, Mississippi has on and off had a referendum process whereby the people, through you could do a series of things, a decision gets put on the ballot, and then the people get to vote on it. And the way that has worked until recently was constitutional. You could amend the state constitution by getting enough signatures from 5 different districts, from the 5 congressional districts, and then you would be able to put a proposal on the ballot for voters to vote on. Legislature got to put up an alternative if they wanted to, and then the people got to vote on it. That was struck down by the Mississippi Supreme Court because we had that provision was written when Mississippi still had 5 congressional districts. We lost them after the lost one after the 2000 census. So the Supreme Court said you can't satisfy the requirements of the Constitution because you can't get signatures from 5 congressional districts because we don't have them anymore. And a lot of criticism of that, but I think it was probably the right decision based on what the language of the Constitution says. And if we're going to be textualists and originalists, which is what conservatives should be when it comes to judicial decisions, sometimes that means we're going to get a decision we don't like the substance of, but it's what adheres to the actual language of the statute of the Constitution. So there have been efforts in the legislature to bring that back, and the biggest question has been how many signatures do you need to get it on the ballot? And I think the concern is that you look at places like California that have voter initiatives just constantly, and government seems to happen just through these voter initiatives, and the one that's a little bit chaotic. But here's the bigger issue, and I think the conversation we had with Jonathan McMillan, who's the representative from Madison before, illustrates this. Legislation most of the time is pretty complicated. Now, I mean, you're not we've got the law on murder and theft pretty well established. I mean, that would be an easy one. But when you start getting into these really complicated areas, whether it's school choice, wine in grocery stores, whatever it is, these medical cannabis, there are a lot of little nuances to it. And even though the legislative process is frustrating, it is designed to make sure a lot of eyes look on everything that gets passed. It's designed to make sure there are a lot of opportunities for people to say, I think you're wrong and here's why. And that produces a better final product than if you just take the first bill that comes in. I mean, and the people who work on these bills are very smart lawyers who work at the Capitol, who work very hard, but there are always refinements. There are refinements when the ideas get better, and there are also refinements when multiple eyes look at something and say, I think this could be read a couple of different ways. And so the risk, the concern that people have is that most voters, myself included, I mean, you show up to the ballot box with a pretty good idea of who you're going to vote for the major elections, and then you get down to the very small offices, which are very important. But most people show up thinking about who they're going to vote for governor. They don't necessarily spend a bunch of time thinking about who they're going to vote for justice court, even though we got some great justice court judges all over the state. And then that extends to when you start getting into these legislative ideas. You folks are probably not spending hours listening to both sides on every proposal that's going to be an initiative. And so you just run the risk that people show up and they vote for something that sounds pretty good, but unlike the people we've elected to be at the legislature full-time 90 days a year, these folks have full-time other jobs that are not thinking about legislation. And so you run the risk that stuff sneaks through that's problematic without people realizing it. And you also run the risk that big money, one of the reasons that a lot of people who are proponents of the referendum process argue for it is they believe that the legislature, generally, not even necessarily just the Mississippi legislature, but they believe big moneyed interests are able to capture legislators and get their will done. And if the people were allowed to speak, then different choices would be made. I tend to disagree with that. My experience with legislators is they really, they have their own views and they're not shy about expressing them. But I actually would argue that the opposite's true, Lance, with these referendums. If you're a big private entity that's going to come in Mississippi and spend $2 million getting signatures and then putting something on the ballot, I think you're probably going to structure whatever you're passing to be as friendly to you as possible, even if it's not particularly good for folks in Mississippi. And you're going to make sure the question is structured in a way that it sounds good to people, even if folks who vote for it don't realize the magnitude of what they might have voted for. Because it's just, that is a rational decision for somebody spending a bunch of money on something to do. So I actually think there's a pretty good argument that if you had a referendum process that was purely legislative, you run the risk of moneyed interest having more influence over what the law is and the people having less influence over it. I see Jim from Caledonia on the C Spire text line, and you can chime in at 601-879-4395 saying, what you're really saying is that you don't trust the people, and that politicians rarely do anything for the people. They do it for themselves and their constituents. Well,
I would debate that just a little because in 95 and 99, you had both ballot initiatives were proposed to limit the terms of elected officials. Now, this was, the ballot initiative process. Well, both of those were shot down by 10% vote. That was thrown into the laps of the people to vote on. So, term limits, apparently Mississippians did not believe in 1995 and 1999 that our elected officials should be under term limits. So,
that's right.
I think it goes both ways there. You never know what you're going to get in a ballot initiative, right?
That's right. And it's not that I don't trust the people. It's that I know most people don't have the time to study every complicated proposal that's going to be put on that ballot. And that's how they're going to – it's not that I don't trust the people. It's that I don't trust the people who are going to be trying to influence the people.
That's where I was going to say that I echo that. I spent a long time in finance, and that's a different language too, just like politics.
That's right.
There's a lot of fine print. And I had a few medical doctors and some brilliant researchers and folks affiliated with Ole Miss. And one of the things was they were so much smarter than me. But my specialty and what I was good at, they had no idea how to do it. They didn't want to, too busy working, earning a living, putting out papers, saving lives. So they hire you to do that. So my expertise was something that they needed. And so I think it's the same way. It's easy to influence when people need you. You got to be very careful and fiduciary in that. And I would worry as well that big money comes in, spreads a lot of marketing. They're not really in the best interest of Mississippians, but they're good at telling you,
right,
we're in the best interest of you, and it not be.
That's exactly right. And they, that's the reason to have real concerns about it is the outside money that is going to come in and try to sway those elections and spend a bunch of money putting together great 30-second commercials that's going to say, vote yes on initiative whatever. Frankly, a good example was the effort that was made to take the Mississippi's education funding formula and stick it in the Constitution. You can run a great ad that says, do you want, do you support children? Do you think schools should be adequately funded? Then vote yes on this. Not letting you know that if that passed, it might end up mandating cuts to law enforcement, roads, bridges, because those are real complicated things, but you can make a 30-second spot that is so clear and so easy that most people are going to say yes because, they're not spending 3 months out of the year looking at all this.
Well, and they would say in accounting, you can make a dog look like a duck.
That's right.
You can. You can make anything look any way you want if you know how to pitch it, put the gloss on it, and put it in front of the people that are hungry to receive it.
Well, y'all, we'll have more coming up. Lots of great comments coming in on the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Trap.
Know what's being said in the halls of the Capitol? You're in the right place. Mornings with Richard Cross continues on Super Talk Mississippi.
Morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. If you want to be part of the discussion this morning, please send us a text at the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. Lots of great comments here. One person on the C Spire text line says, so in other words, legislators know better than us average peons. We're not smart enough to vote on issues. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's that there are going to be, I would argue, and I think the people who have reservations about it, one of them is they would argue that they're going to be outside moneyed interests that are going to spend a boatload trying to confuse people, because going and voting on issues as a voter is just different than the way the process works in the legislature. I mean, if you're going to vote on something in the Mississippi legislature, you are essentially forced to sit there through an extended debate over this piece of legislation. You know, you don't just pop in. It's not like Congress where you go sit in an office and then they ring a bell and you come over and press a button, or you come over and vote. I mean, you sit on the floor while questions get asked, while people get up and have a right to speak about it. Whereas in the initiative process, you show up to vote for governor or president, senator, whatever you happen to be showing up to vote for, and there's going to be an initiative on there for you to vote yes or no for, and it is much, much easier to trick people when they are showing up to vote for governor and then are asked a question like, do you support or do you want to vote for this initiative that'll fully fund education, and not give the full context. And the other thing is, the single greatest motivator for elected officials, I mean, I think they all want to do good, whatever their definition of good is. They also recognize they can't do their version of good if they don't stay in office. And so hearing from their constituents that they're for something tends to motivate people, and the fear of being beaten in the next election tends to motivate them. So I think the best way to get your will enacted at the legislative level is to demonstrate that a lot of people are for something, and your legislator is going to start listening to you.
Well, and as a devil's advocate text here from the 601, we vote for elected officials. They would never put out misinformation. And, of course, none of our elected officials take outside money. So, this debate is similar to who was pulling for Ole Miss and who was not, that were Mississippians. It seems to be a debate and an issue that wears several hats. And that was kind of what we wanted to talk about, were some of these that we know are bigger issues. Here in the state. Ballot initiative is one we chose today. The many layers of it. It's not as simple as, hey, let's do this and just it'll all be okay, Lucian.
That's right.
There's more nuance to it, and there's more layers to this that I'm glad that we're getting a chance to kind of go through, because I like the conversation, and it doesn't seem to be an easy one to pick a winner or a loser in this one.
No, and I think there are good arguments on both sides. I mean, I understand that people think there are these issues that the legislature is afraid to take up, or that somehow the lobbyists have convinced them not to take up, and this is a way for people to have their will. And I don't know that there's any real opposition to having some level of some sort of referendum process. The big questions are how many people need to sign to support something, and then whether the legislature can then turn around and change what was passed in the referendum process. And
because that's the way it is now, right? When we had it implemented, it was an indirect initiative, meaning that it goes to the legislature after the appropriate signatures have been met.
And the legislature gets to propose an alternative if they want to, and so you go in and you vote on. You go in and you get to vote for the initiative that was there because of signatures, and then you could also vote for the legislative alternative, or you could vote no on both of them. And it is, and people have pointed this out, it was a confusing process.
Right. And it's one of the more difficult processes, as I've read, as far as to go from the initiative process to getting something into law.
Well, and the problem that was the big problem with our previous initiative process was it allowed you to amend the Constitution.
Right.
It wasn't
That's
just
dangerous.
passing a law. Yeah, and it is very rare that a significant piece of legislation passes anywhere where there are not technical amendments a year later that people come back and say, oh, we need to tweak this thing because it had an unintended consequence, or drafting error.
Right.
And
that would be my question: is how detail oriented are these referendums, given the nature of how legal and how bound by constitutional law and say common law, precedent? You're a lawyer. I mean, this stuff gets to be pretty weird in the fine print.
Yeah.
And if you don't have folks, and again, I think Rankin County made this mistake recently trying to implement an overlay to have approval for pretty much any type of structure that was going to be constructed, mobile homes, these types of things. Well, when it boiled down, I don't believe an attorney actually wrote that document. So there was so many weird little nuances in there that the people threw a hissy fit and got it overturned. But thank goodness they were paying attention to it, and you had good people that were on top of that. Dick Hall's widow was one of those that really spearheaded that. But you needed somebody there paying attention to the details that didn't seem to add up because the voters did not know. It was, so there's so much there that it seems you could miss in the referendum process, whereas with the legislative process, most of these guys are lawyers, and if not, they have a lot of them up there, and it seems that even though you may get a misspelled word here or there like last year, it's pretty much bulletproof when it comes to the legalities and the nuance of it.
And they can come back and fix it the next year. I mean, that's the other thing is they can come – and it happened. Like they've already – this legislative session, there was an error in one of the bills that didn't provide enough, I believe, judicial seats in one of the districts. And it wasn't malicious. It wasn't a policy decision. It was somebody wrote one when they should have written two.
Yes, sir.
And so they came back and changed it quickly and easily.
I think we get some comments here, and one question here. So we're not too dumb to vote for a person, but too dumb to vote on a referendum. I don't think that's what we're saying. I mean, personally. And two, of course, one of the comments was there doesn't seem to be much of an appetite amongst the legislature. I wouldn't imagine there is, Lucian, given that they're elected to do this job. I can't imagine the legislature would be like jumping over backwards, doing backflips, going, yeah, let's implement the referendum process and supersede our authority.
I mean, I think this is actually a good example of people being for something and it moving legislators. I mean, there are a bunch of them over there who support reinstating some sort of initiative process because people feel so passionately about it. And you know this from the C Spire text line, and from just talking to people generally, it is, whenever we talk about it, the boards light up, and whenever a legislator is in, inevitably people ask the question. So I do think there's a lot of interest in it. It's just they're and a perfect example was, I think it was Initiative 23, which was an effort principally by folks on the left to constitutionalize Mississippi's funding scheme. Everybody in leadership on the Republican side was against it because they knew what was going to happen. If you say you have to fund at this level as a matter of constitutional law, where people can go out to the courts and order the legislature to spend money, one of two things is going to have to happen. You're either going to have to start raising taxes, or in a year where you don't have adequate revenues, you're going to say, well, we're going to fire a bunch of highway patrolmen.
Yeah.
We're going to not spend money on bridge safety
Over here,
or
so we got it
repaving
over
roads because the Constitution compels us to do this. But it was tailor-made for 30-second ads on television and the internet that would say, do you love children? Then vote yes on 23. It'll give them adequate funding.
I think it's again, I'm glad we dove into this because your direct experience in dealing with these issues, especially from working on staffs and then from the legal side of it, being an attorney and knowing how many of the details that can be missed in 30 seconds. Some of those things, that's a lot. I always used to say, it is the devil's in the details, and you better read the dang fine print, man.
Well, and lots of people are pointing out problems with the current system. Nobody's really figured out the perfect system
mix.
until we live in the kingdom of God. I don't think we will have a perfect government system.
Mm-hmm.
So. Well, it is. This is a quick 3 hours of radio. We're already.
You'll be at the weekend before you know it, bud.
I tell you what, you got a big weekend planned?
I'll be up here for a little while tomorrow, getting some garden mama and handymanning done, and getting the weekend programming dropped in. The usual schedule. Probably not a whole lot though. When we come back on the other side, though, I would love you to. Let's talk a little about Greenland. It's one of the interesting topics on my mind these days.
The president is certainly generating plenty of content. Y'all stick with us. Lance Talbert, Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Seabrook.
Shaping Mississippi politics each morning. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk Mississippi.
Brush your hair back from your eyes. Take you down, let the river flow. Sometimes you're gonna walk the street behind the green sheet of glass.
Good morning. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. Remember, Mornings with Richard Cross is presented by Community Bank, rooted in our community, communitybank.net. Well,
the land of green.
There we go.
When you look at Greenland without the ice on it, which is unique because it's a huge island, and in the middle of that island, if you remove the ice, there's this enormous freshwater lake that runs about half of the country, from the north to about the central part of the, if you want to call it a continent. It's not, it's a big island, but it looks amazing, like what's underneath the ice. I can imagine, not only from research and having a captive, basically aquarium there to do a lot of digging and research in. We had the World War II Beyond had a base there, if I recall, in Greenland, where there was nuclear readiness and very important to counterweight the Russians and their ability to come across the North Pole. So what do you think about all of the Trump comments, we won't rule out military action? Of course, that's one of the jokers in his pocket, but how do you see this unfolding, Lucian? It's a big deal. It seems that it's kind of confusing to a lot of people because they're going, whoa, what are we talking about, going to war with Denmark to get Greenland? And I don't really think that's what's happening, but what do you see?
I don't think there's any world in which we're going to war with Denmark over Greenland. I feel, but you're right that
the way it's spinning,
and also the president and some of the people around him have certainly suggested that. I honestly think part of that is trolling. I don't think there is a world in which we are actually going to go take Greenland by force. Now, it is a couple thoughts on it. First, there's some legitimate strategic reasons why the United States owning and controlling Greenland directly. Now, we've got a fair amount of influence over Greenland now through the Danes, but there's some real legitimate strategic reasons why we want to control Greenland. It is, on the path that any sort of it would be one of the major paths over which missiles from Russia would travel towards the United States. It's in a crucial corridor where ships pass, and that there would be a good strategic reason for us to want to have greater control there. The Chinese have been making investments there in an area that's increasingly, I mean, it's always been in our sphere of influence, but they are increasingly trying to encroach on it. It's interesting to me. I do think it speaks a little bit to Trump derangement syndrome, and he feeds into it now. I mean, he feeds into it with letting people get out there and say, well, we can't rule out military force, but there are only 56,000 people who live in Greenland. As big of an island as it is, it is a relatively small place. There's nothing to say they couldn't, principles of self-determination would suggest they could say, well, we really want to be part of the U.S. rather than part of Denmark. And I believe one of the things that's been discussed about would be some sort of financial arrangement where we would more or less buy Greenland from the people of Greenland and then let it be a territory of the United States. But it's just it has been discussed by presidents in the past for quite some time. Now it's been discussed privately. That's not really President Trump's style, but it's been discussed privately because of the strategic interest the United States would have in controlling stuff in our part of the world. I also think, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the context of Venezuela, that the Chinese communists are trying to encroach in our area of the world. They want to come exert power on our side of the world to both because I think they would like to replace us over time as the global hegemon, but also because I think they want to dissuade us from being involved in their sphere of the world. And so we really have two options there. We can take it lying down and just let the bully keep hanging us by our underwear from the locker, or we can punch him in the face. And I think the president's approach is the best way to deal with a bully is to punch him in the face. And I think having greater control over Greenland arguably does that. I mean, it's not – I can't say I wake up every morning hoping that we take over Greenland. But, the suggestion that this is some sort of silly Trump being crazy thing is just not serious analysis from folks on the left. But I think we're mostly used to that at this point.
Yeah, as you look at the globe from the Arctic perspective, which is a unique way of looking at a world map. It's not normal, and as you look at it, though, you see the proximity of Alaska, Greenland, Canada, around the North Pole, and Russia has invested heavily in icebreakers. They have become extremely active in shipping in that area and patrolling, and so it seems very natural that Greenland, this big iceberg sitting there, that Denmark owns, it doesn't seem to have much vested interest in anything in Greenland, would be a very strategic resource for the United States. How do you go about acquiring it? You think it would likely be a Louisiana purchase or at least a partnership with, say, Greenland and the Danes to develop the resources or share in the profits of?
That would be my guess, is that this would be done financially through a vote of people there in cooperation with the Danish government. But, the current administration likes to troll a little bit. I just, the military stuff, I just don't think is very serious. And here's where it comes back to how I think the Trump derangement syndrome affects this so much, Lance. We were told in 2016, and then we've been told on and off, depending on when it's convenient, that Trump is a stooge of the Russians, right? Like they've got compromat on.
I think Putin would be a little. He might argue with you on that.
The strongest argument for us taking Greenland, annexing Greenland, is that it is one of the main choke points for Russian naval and air movement, and it gives us greater ability to defend ourselves and to deter Russian action. So Vladimir Putin very much does not want us to have Greenland. So if Trump is some sort of Russian stooge, he is not a very good one because he's doing exactly the opposite of what Putin wants. But it shows how they just kind of pop these narratives on and off based on what story they're wanting to tell and what they want people to be worked up about. But that'll be an interesting. It's got a huge supply of rare earth minerals, which the Chinese right now have an awful lot of control over, which is part of the reason they're making investments there. This would allow us to have less control over the sort of rare earth minerals that are important for technological development. So, I mean, there's some legitimate reasons for it, and so we will see what happens there.
Well, I think that's a very comprehensive answer and a very good look at it. And dealing with Trump, as you said, I think he has a lot of fun with the role that he plays. Now, I would say that I've been, his actions and his words on the social media platforms seem to be a little bit more organized these days than, say, in the first term. I don't know if you see the same thing, but it doesn't seem to be as random. It's almost as if the things that he puts out and the administration puts out have great meaning to them.
Right.
They're there to stimulate thought or maybe provoke something or an emotion somewhere, and then they use that and it comes back and they go, okay, this is the right course of action. Whereas it seemed in the first term it was a little more reactionary. It seems very organized now out of the administration as to what the goals are, how we're going to go about doing it, and then maybe even, as you were saying, the ballot initiative process, putting out that 30-second ad, however, whether it's on social media or,
right.
That this is what we want, and then you start getting information back from, say, competitors, those that support it, and hopefully making logical decisions there on how you move forward. Is that your take on this Trump administration this term is seemingly a little more prepared and maybe better at the marketing of their plans?
There's some of that. I think part of the difference with this administration compared to the first is the president is surrounded by mostly true believers in the Trump mission, his sort of vision on things, as opposed to the first term where you had a lot of conventional Republican politicians who maybe weren't really on board, and I think that muddled a lot of the messaging because it was just different because they didn't really see it the way that he did. There's somebody here on the C Spire text line says, and I agree with them, that taking over land of a NATO member and ally would be a Russian dream. I think that's true if we take it by force.
Right, I would agree 100%.
But that's we're not going to invade Denmark. I'll say the one of the things that would concern me with some sort of annexation of Greenland would be what role we're imagining they would play in American politics, right? Like, are they going to be
is it Puerto Rico?
Is it Puerto Rico or is it Maine? Because I would assume, and again, I'm no expert on the politics of Greenland, but I would assume that it's a pretty politically progressive place, a la Denmark. And I don't know that I would like a bunch of folks who think like the Danes voting in our elections. So that's a separate issue. We're coming up on a break, y'all. This is Lance and Lucian here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us. We'll have final thoughts coming up next.
Get the inside track on Mississippi politics. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
Morning, y'all. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on Super Talk Mississippi. In for Richard here. This really is the fastest 3 hours in radio. One thing we've not gotten a chance to talk about that is, to my mind, the biggest story, one of the biggest stories in the world that's not getting covered is Iran, which is just on fire with, in some places, literally. I'm looking at photos here on Fox News of protesters chanting "Death to the dictator" while
they named
government buildings are fired
after Donald Trump.
After Trump, yeah, you sent me that. That's
really cool. I mean, the organic nature of this is remarkable.
Yes,
when you see a society that has been so oppressed religiously. The sexism focused on keeping women in their place, and it's really refreshing to watch the young ladies and the older women, to me, shedding the burqa and the hijabs,
yes.
and going, no, we're not doing this anymore. With Sharia law, no, it's not happening, and it speaks volumes to me. To those that stay home and try to fix the problems in their country instead of parachuting out and we're out of here. We don't, it's too bad. These folks have been living under an oppressive dictatorship, so
That's
to speak,
right.
religiously for decades. We tried years ago to stave off that, and the people got upset and brought this in. And look, how many years later now you're looking at the Iranian people going, man, what a mess we've created here by going this route.
Well, and it is a total rejection of the Obama-Biden approach to Iran. I mean, Ben Rhodes, who was kind of the architect of it, I mean, this has been a really bad couple of days for him because it shows that Biden and Obama and Rhodes, Susan Rice, the whole bit of them, were absolutely right and absolutely wrong. And you and I, we were talking about this yesterday. This is the difference between an America that shows strength and an America that capitulates. I mean, the solution that the Obama-Biden folks had for Iran was let's give them boatloads of money.
And then let them build nukes.
Exactly. And what ended up happening is they took a bunch of our money, they continued their nuclear program, and then they took American money we gave them to fund terrorism in Israel.
And now they're turning that terrorism on their own people.
That's exactly right. And, Trump came in. He withdrew us from this agreement that the Obama administration had entered with Iran. He reimposed serious sanctions on Iran, and little by little has been cutting off their allies, and I think...
And their ego.
That's right.
The ego of that administration. To me, the Israeli strike, the taking out of the nuclear facility, however much you took out, you know what it signified? That we can get you, and you are not immune.
Yeah.
And I think the people sense that this administration of the Iranians is not untouchable.
Yes.
And they went, it took a little time, but look at a few months later, where are we now? With the Iranian people standing up for what they believe in, and they know that human rights and the abuses, the terrorism sponsoring, all of this is not them. These are smart people, been around for thousands of years as empire, in a beautiful country of intelligent folks that are waking up.
Yes.
This ain't right.
No, you're exactly right. And remember when in 2020 when Trump killed Soleimani, who was one of the chief architects of their sort of military strategy, we were told that it was going to ignite a global war. It was awful for America. The Iranian people were going to rise up against us. They're burning statues of Soleimani right now. I mean, they're burning those images of him over there. And it just shows that these people who've said what we need to do is appease the world, give them our money. That's the way. That's the way to bring peace. Are just wrong, and Trump deserves an awful lot of credit for what's going on over there.
Well, and we have Dr. Glenn Antizzo coming on next with Mary Whedon and you. It's a local show, but you can always get online and stream that, through the SuperTalk platform, and he will continue with this global geopolitics conversation if you folks are interested in that.
That's one more reason to keep your dial locked right here.
And again, I'm so happy that we got to kind of dig into some of these issues. We covered a lot with the legislature, obviously. Jonathan did a great and wonderful job. And then getting to dig in on some of these. I appreciate you and your expertise in pulling back some of the layers of the onion.
Look, it's always great to be with you. That's kind of you to say. It's a fun way to start your Friday, and I appreciate you letting me do it.
Well, do you have any big plans for the weekend?
We're getting ready for a move, so hopefully we'll be back in the house.
You're going back to the house.
That is the goal. Fingers crossed.
Out of the deluxe apartment in the sky, back down to the house, ground level.
That is exactly right. Y'all, thanks for being with us these last 3 hours. This is Lucian Smith here on Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Coming up next, we'll have Fox News followed by SuperTalk Mississippi News.
I can't exist. I surely miss your tender kiss.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.